let's have a quick intro about the CSS Box Model. So we'll be having the content within a box, and we could give out a border to highlight our content. But we might definitely need some space between the content and the border, and this is where the padding comes in. And we could decide the layout of the whole box by giving some margin to adjust it. Alright, let's get started with a div tag with a class name of box1, and let's add a piece of text called box1 within it. And yeah, now it's visible. Let's create a CSS file now in the name of style.css. Okay, it's there, and we must make sure to link the external CSS file to our web page here. Alright, so it is done. So now we have an external CSS file and a div in our HTML page with the text box1 and a class called box1 as well. And now you can notice that there is some margin given by the browser automatically to the text there. Well, we could control the whole web page by using the asterisk selector, and let's type in as margin, let's say 0. Yeah, no, there is no margin at all for this text. And we could also adjust the padding to 0. Well, it's a usual practice for developers to adjust the margin and padding for the whole page so that they have more control with the elements that they're dealing. Now let's copy their class name. Let's use a period sign so that it is a class. Let's change the background color to something like maybe aqua. Alright, so now you can see that the div tag has actually taken a whole block in our web page. But we can control it by using the width attribute. Let's say 200 pixels. And if I save it, now that's the amount of space that it takes. And we could also control the height using the height attribute. Let's say 100 pixels there. There we go. So we have a box now. But the box is more towards the top left of our web page. We might need to control its margin. Let's try to move this block to the right by using margin left. Let's say 50 pixels. There we go. And in the same way, we can move the box down by using margin top. There you go. And if we want to give margin for all 4 sides of the box, like margin right, margin bottom, which goes for the downside of the box, and margin left finally. So in this way, you could actually control all 4 sides of the margin there. But we have short notation for this, so we can just take it off. Okay, now the order that we enter starts with the top. So let's say the top is going to be maybe 50 pixels. 50 pixels on top, and it works like in the clockwise way. So the right side is going to be 60 pixels. Now the next third value would be the bottom, which is 25 pixels, and finally the margin on left, which is the 4th value of 100 pixels there. So if I change this to 200, we can see that more margin on left is added there. So it's more easy to use this way when we want to just give 4 different values to our margin based on top, right, bottom, and left. But if you want to give the same value for all 4 sides, you can just simply type 1 value there. So in all 4 sides, it's going to give 100 pixels there. But if you want to control the top and bottom and the right and left of your box differently, so you can add a second value there. We could use maybe 50 pixels. So first it starts with top, so top and bottom would be 100 pixels, and the right and left would be 50 pixels there. So that's how it works. Alright, to understand it more further, you can right click on the web page, select inspect, and let me make this web page a bit wider, and go for the computer tab over here. And if you hover over the HTML element, you can see the box model there. So here it says 200 times 100, which means 200 is the width and 100 is its height. For the moment we don't have any padding or border, but you can observe the margin here. So as we have said, we have a top and bottom margin of 100 and left and right of 50. And yeah, that's all about margins. But before moving on, let's give it a margin of 150 pixels so that it looks better on left and right. So let's give out a border for our box first. So there are plenty of options here when you define the style of the border. Each one has its unique design. The most used one is a solid, and let's say the same way how we defined different values for margin on top, right, bottom and left, we could here give out different border styles for top and bottom and left and right. So now the top and bottom is solid and the left and right is given the dotted design. And let's say you want to have a margin only to the left side of your box. To do that, you could use border left style and give it one value like solid. There you go. It looks like this, and you can customize it to look more better when making web pages. For the moment, let's stick to border style solid. And let's go for the next important one. Let's say border color. And we could pick up any color here. Let's choose gray. It suits fine. Okay, so now we have a normal border of a box, but we want to define the thickness of our border with border width, and let's say 10 pixels. Oops. Alright, so now we have a border with 10 pixels, and we could also make more thicker borders like this. It depends on the content and why we're using it. And in the same way how we did margins, we can define the top and bottom with 10 pixels and left and right with 20 pixels to give it a good design. And you could also set up 4 different values for all 4 sides of the box if you give out 4 values here. For the moment, let's give out 10 pixels on all sides. And you could have noticed that we have used style, color and width for our border. Well, we actually have a shorthand notation there. So let's type as border solid. We can give out the thickness here and also the color. Let's say blue violet. So it's pretty much the same, and this order here doesn't matter actually. You could choose the color, the style and the thickness. It doesn't matter because the order over here doesn't matter. Now if we want a smooth edge at the vertices of your box, you could choose border radius. With 10 pixels you can see that there's a smooth edges there, and you could also set it with percentages, and you could also make circles with that if you set it to 50 percentages. Now let's go for the next one called padding. So padding is the distance between the border and the actual content of the box. So if we set it to 20 pixels, now the 20 pixels padding has been applied to top, right and bottom and left of the content, and we could also increase it and check how our box changes now. So when we increase the padding here, the size of our box is changing eventually. Well, let's say that you want to stick to the height and width that you have defined above without making it to change. To do that, there's the best way of doing it. We could type as box sizing border box. So, well, before applying this, I would like to show you how it actually works first. So let me go to the web page, right click, inspect, go for the computer tab. Alright, so now this is all about our box. So you can see that the content is given 200 width and 100 height. There's some padding there, so we have 20 pixels of padding totally and 20 more pixels of border, which gives us 140 pixels of height for the moment. Well, if we apply this code over here, box sizing border box, and now if we save it, what it actually does is it strictly keeps the height and width to what we have applied over here. So now the height is 100 pixels, which means including the padding and border, it's going to give us 100 pixels. So we have padding of 20 pixels totally and border of 20 pixels. So it keeps the content to the height of 60 pixels. So 60 plus 40 will be equal to 100 pixels. And it is the same case for the width as well. So the width as 20, 20, 40 pixels, so 160 plus 40 pixels will give you 200 pixels altogether. But if you want to make it more dynamic according to the content, you can choose content box, so that the box will become more bigger when you set up more padding and if the content increases as well. Okay, so to make it more interesting, let's bring out another box and let's change the class name to box2 and the text as well. Let's head back to the CSS file, create the class that we given for box2 as box2. Oops. Well, I'm not gonna waste time. I'm gonna actually copy all this code and paste it here. Okay, so we have two similar boxes now, but if you take a look carefully, you can see that we have applied 100 pixel for the top and bottom margin of both these boxes. But so if you hover over the box 1, you can see, okay, 100 pixel margin is given there and it ends over there. And we have given the same value for the second box, but why wouldn't it be 200 pixels margin altogether there? It's because margin actually checks for, does it actually have enough space between content. So it actually overlaps the margin of box 1. Okay, it actually overlaps the bottom margin of box 1 from the top margin of box 2. So altogether the margin stays consistent even if we change the size of the box. It is the same. Well, we could actually do something more to check this. Well, we can actually change the margin of the second box. So we can change it to something like 300. Oops, that's 500 and it seems like it's too much, and let's keep it to 300. Okay, so now you can see that the 300 pixel margin is applied for the top of box 2, but still it's not going to be 400 altogether because margin overlaps over the other. And you could always use the help of the developer tools to check the margin, padding, border, and the content of your box model. So yeah, that's all about the box model for today. We'll be learning how to make extraordinary CSS in our next video, so do subscribe and share to anyone who needs it. Have a great day.